So I think I have a crush on your washing machine, and I do want to talk about it.
Okay.
But I feel like maybe we should start with Boyd McDonald.
All right.
Because I love that piece too, and maybe you could talk a little bit about like how you made that piece and that album. Just sort of maybe explain your process a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Full disclosure. The piece that you see before you, that you saw this evening, doesn't actually have a heck of a lot to do with Boyd McDonald. It's really, that piece could be called Buster. Okay. In ye olden days, when one had to watch pornography on VHS tape, that was one of my favorite tapes. And I watched it a lot. And it got damaged. And it became more and more sort of, beautiful in a screwed up way. And finally, digital La came about, and I recorded it. And I loved the music, and I loved what the damaged tape did to the music. And I was pretty much like, oh, we should do a piece with this.
So the original context, post masturbation, was that we made an album called The Rose Has Teeth in the Mouth of a Beast, which was an attempt at queer sonic portraiture. Like each song would be a biographical portrait of the life of a different queer person that we admired or find inspiring or cool in some way. And it's kind of like planning a dinner party or making a mixtape where you want to sort of have different folks that balance things out. And we had, in the initial planning of the album, there were some fairly kind of austere high culture people like Ludwig Wittgenstein on there. And so we thought, well, we're not here to do this kind of great hall of estimable citizens. And so, we need Boyd McDonald, who is the editor of this incredible pornographic zine called Straight to Hell. Anybody read Straight to Hell?
Anybody there? Raise your hand. Straight to Hell. Who has a copy of Straight to Hell?
Who's looked at Straight to Hell? Okay.
One? Come on, hands
Stevie,
up. Hi,
Brandon, I see you.
Wow, one.
Okay, so
you guys got to get some better porn.
What used to be great about Straight to Hell, it kind of
after
sucks.
talking about popping your peas, dude, you are popping every pea.
Sorry. Well, that's the imminence of sonic queerness. Anyway, the great thing about Straight to Hell, when it was good, it sucks now, but it used to be great, is that it was this sort of fantasy archive of allegedly true stories. People would write, it was like Penthouse Forum for straight people, but this was queer accounts of sex in the Navy, sex in the military, sex at boarding school, sex in various, quasi-legal, maybe criminal contexts, all kinds of sex. People would write descriptions of their experiences, and a lot of it reflects a sort of pre-Stonewall use of public space. And so when we wanted to make a portrait of Boyd McDonald, I wanted to combine the audio from porn, like the videotape that Martin had, with recordings of people having sex in public. So I went to Blow Buddies during Bear Weekend, and I had a hidden microphone and like recording rig, and I would go in the sex dungeon, the like Hall of Hands, it's like a zombie movie kind of, and there's all these people getting it on, and I would be that guy, like the annoying one that's standing too close. And I was recording different people having sex. And so the studio version of the record, of that song, and this live version is a combination of porn music that's found, and then playing instruments on top, and then field recordings of sex, where I'm trying to get as close as I can to strangers and to try to record the sounds of them encouraging each other and egging each other on. And you get all the, police sirens and all the reality of a social life outside of like queer, utopian sleaze, just like
here.
So yeah, that's the origin of the piece. Sorry, it's a long answer.
No, great answer. So one thing, I'm not going to ask you what is queer, but one thing that comes up in the All Sound is Queer piece is a kind of ambivalence about like indexical representations of sex recorded, like the orgasm track in all of these songs and stuff. So maybe just since it is the year of sex, you could talk a little bit about, like recording sex, recording the body, recording bodily fluids would be another sort of famous Matmos moment, and sort of how you think about that in relation to like how to represent sex, I guess, or how have you guys thought about that over time?
It's a real challenge. I mean, there's recordings of people having sex on like psychic TV records. There's recordings of Genesis and Caress having sex. And I always felt, you know, and I love some of the recordings that do that. You know, Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin's Je t'aime moi non plus. You guys know that one. There's something very performative about knowing that you're having sex, but knowing that you're recording, that introduces this sort of epistemological tremor of fakery, which I think is already built into sex because we're always afraid, does the other person really enjoy what I'm doing? Are they just saying that they like it because I asked? And that, like, that chasm, you know, the basic, like, bar between people.
All humans.
Yeah, all humans. I don't know, probably chinchillas too. Maybe not, maybe they're just ecstatic. So it's hard to record the fact of sex because sexuality is always kind of in excess of wherever it is that we want to find it, and that moment of capture is usually a material action and an event rather than the truth of sex. I mean, I've done things like when we made the song about Pink Narcissus, you know, in honor of the filmmaker, I laid a piece of paper on the ground and I mic'd my heartbeat, and then I watched Pink Narcissus and masturbated and recorded the sound of my semen splashing on the paper. And then I took the sound of the semen splash and manipulated that into a rhythm. But I don't know that the splash sound conveys what was in my mind, or like, where is the orgasm? You know, we need to ask, I don't know, Anna Marie Jagos about this. Like, I bet she could figure it out. But yeah, sex just always seems to like slip through your fingers, and maybe that's sorry.
This shit writes itself. I mean, if it was comedy, but this is serious.
It's so serious. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be blasé and complacent in a sort of post-identity mode because I'm in my mid-40s and I have tenure and I live in a big city, and like all the reasons that I wouldn't feel urgency around defending myself. You know, I mean, the irony is that this piece, Public Sex for Boyd McDonald, we tried to play it at a festival in Asheville, North Carolina? Is Asheville in North Carolina?
I'm trying to.
Yes.
No,
all right.
is it?
Yeah.
It was Big Ears.
Big Ears is in Asheville, yeah?
No, yeah. See, it wasn't in Asheville.
Asheville's pretty
anyway,
groovy.
it was somewhere.
We got kicked out of a club.
It was somewhere in the South.
We were in the South, and we were at a festival, and we were going to play that piece, and we were sound checking, and the sound man saw the video and said, is there pornographic content in the video? And I said, well, you don't see his dick.
I cut it. Well, yeah, you just watched it. I don't have to explain it. I mean, you can kind of, like, it's like imply. Like, did anybody feel like they saw a big floppy penis in that video?
I did. I saw it.
Yeah?
So it's in all truth, having watched every goddamn frame of that video a million times, there is barely schlong in that thing. Like, when there's the shot that's looking down and he's in the water, you can, like, and after this event, I was like, is there? Like, you know, and it's kind of shadows or water reflections and so on and he's, you know, like he's clearly, like, handling his penis.
So this guy, the sound man, is like, well...
Anyway.
And you should know that this club is owned by the Cornerstone Foundation, and the Cornerstone Foundation is committed to the idea that Jesus Christ is the cornerstone of our lives, and we can't have you showing gay pornography inside this venue. So could you just not play that piece? And then we were like, yes, I'm finally being oppressed. Awesome. This is amazing.
Because honestly, we have done that piece in the courtyard of a church in Italy with priests in attendance. And their reaction was like, oh. Leave it to America.
We tried to be all, you know, relax, baby, be cool, you know, but like it doesn't work.
I was like, it's a 21 and over club, isn't it? And he actually said, what if a child walks by and looks in the door?
And get this, the venue, it was called the Square Room.
Yeah.
Oops. So yeah, that piece honestly like is the one sort of node of sort of feeling hailed or interpolated as a gay man, and that being a problem You know, I mean, I don't know. I grew up in Kentucky and I got beat up sometimes. I don't think it was necessarily because I was queer so much as weird, you know, and just odd. But yeah, it's odd that this song, which we made in a sort of haze of historical thinking, kind of got us in hot water. But we survived.
Okay, so Martin, I really wanted to take up on your after sex, we do the laundry joke, because, I mean, we grew up in Kentucky together. We're all aging. And, you know, it is interesting. It's kind of deep to see you guys do an album about your washing machine. It is. I mean, and so anyway, I just wanted to kind of like ask about how you were inspired to do it. Like, when did you get the idea? How did it all come about?
Drew and I take turns being in charge of the records, and Drew always comes up with these incredibly elaborate, you know, like takes half an hour to explain to a person in a bar, like what I'm working on, and I always like pendulum swing back the other way, and make things incredibly simple. Kind of really just in childish reaction to Drew. Like, again and again, for decades, we've been doing this.
23 loving years.
Hand, Drew became a professor and works all the time now, and I do all the housework. And the washing machine is in the studio, or the studio is in the laundry room, depending on how you look at it, because it's not very fancy. It's just a big room with those things in it. And I don't know. I use it all the time. I think about it. I think about getting my whites whiter than white, and, you know, like how to make his colorful socks stay colorful and stuff. I mean, I think about laundry. So yeah, it's definitely part of my daily life. And it has all the things that music has. It has rhythms, and it has periodicity where it does something for a while and then it stops and it does something else and then it goes back and it goes back to that first thing, just like people love music that does that. It seems to go on forever, which people seem to like also. Yeah, and it ends like you suck. No, it ends with a bang. I mean, it just. I fell in love with a boy when I was in high school who was a drummer, and he was an inveterate tapper on things, and I was like, I want to be like you. And I picked up that habit, and a poor sad man is now like just the father of children and never plays music anymore. And it is hilarious that I'm here doing this. Ha ha, Steve. And I picked up that habit, and I know whenever I look at any object, I mean, I don't, you know, whatever, I've never played a nuclear, you know, power plant or whatever, but I can look at things and know what they sound like when struck. And washing machines, American washing machines of a certain age, are great drums. Like, they just sound great.
I think we're going to fly it to Europe to do the European tour.
Well, it's going to go on a ship, actually.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to ship it. Sorry.
Well, I did. I guess I did want to ask about because, like, since your guys' music, since your general genre is electronic music, it's indexed to a certain kind of like gay male life, gay male history. When I see the washing machine, and even when I hear the washing machine, I think about a kind of tradition of feminist art and of the everyday and about labor and care also. So I don't know if I even need to ask that question after hearing about your housework duties, Martin, and Drew's career. But anyway, that was just a strong association for me.
Totally. I mean, we watched Chantal Ackerman's Jean Dielman when we were working on this record, and it really challenged us in the way that, of course, it challenges everyone who watches it, just the sheer force of how you're brought to pay attention to a housewife's routine and to think about real-time unfolding of tasks. I mean, it's not actually real-time, but it feels like it, because there's this oppressive, presentation of an unsoftened reality of housework. And I think it kind of gave us the courage to in our own way to like, okay, let's just have 4 minutes of the record that's just the washing machine, and we don't change it and we let it be. And that's hard because art, you're supposed to express yourself or like show that you worked hard or something. And and we do that a lot. There's a lot of like intensive manipulation to make it musical, but Ackerman's way of thinking about women's work and the time that it takes, and that you can't fast forward it, that you have to be with it and in it. That's part of why the concert is the way that it is, that it's structured around taking the time and being defined by a task, and thank God it didn't break. Yeah, it's weird. Actually, we've played this show a few times where people come up to us at the end of it and they're like, dude, what would be amazing was like if you actually ran the washing machine.
Like, did you
And we're
guys
like,
all get that it
could
was running, right?
Could we be any more
Right?
fucking didactic? Like, of course it's running, but like they don't get it. So I just want you to know that we were actually running a washing machine. I mean, I don't know, as far as...
Why is that important?
Yeah, good question. I think maybe we're invested in the real, and maybe like the work is leveraging the idea that it's real, because there's so much, I think, electronic music that's about virtual spaces or virtual reverbs or synthesis and the premise of synthesis, and we're kind of the opposite of like, what if you did the real thing? I mean, with respect to housework, I think there is a sense of like, our lives are divided by I teach and then we tour in the summertime, and I think it's very strong of Martin to say, oh, well, let's take the fun art making and make it about the fact of my housework, So it's getting kind of couples therapy.
I don't, I gotta be honest, like, I just wasn't thinking that. Like, I would love that this was like, if it was in a movie, it would be like, you have forgotten about me, and I do all this. Well, I mean, of course I think that sometimes, like why you don't put your socks together before you put them in the hamper. I kill you 1,000 times. And does anybody else do someone else's laundry here, like regularly? Yeah. So does that other person, like, what? It's like, so I have to have this museum of socks and I have to wait for the other one to come around in the cycle, like, until I can finally put the two Kermit socks together again. And then, like, your Kermit socks are finally ready again, honey.
But it's that much sweeter.
And that's why we bring the washing machine on tour, to remind you of those Kermit socks.
I might just ask one more question, and then we'll open up to the audience. But I guess I was sort of thinking, since we called this queer noise, and kind of thinking about, the impersonal, and a lot of people are interested in objects and relations to animals and non-human objects now. And I feel like you guys really, like, from quasi-objects on, you've sort of pioneered that, and you've really been like a really interesting place for thinking about kind of like queer impersonality. And like that continues, but you also, I just think about your work, like, and also I think kind of your career and your reception in terms of like ramping up the abstraction and the impersonality, and ramping up the personal too, because it's really an important part of your career that you guys are a couple, that you have lived together all this time, you collaborate, it really is a kind of like marriage of true minds kind of moment, sorry to embarrass you. And now it's like you're literally bringing your like washing machine on stage. So I just, this is just like more of an observation, because I feel like it's sort of like you've ramped up on both sides, and like the performance tonight really made me think about that, how it's kind of like the most impersonal and the most personal at the same time.
God, I mean, I love that, the generosity of that. I feel like it's a better way of thinking about it than my own, which is often that there's a kind of centrifugal force to couples, but also a centrifugal force to a body of work where you start to compete with yourself. And so when you say ramping up, it could be this kind of feedback loop of like exaggerating and exacerbating the things that were rewarded in the past, or else a terror of being seen as someone who's repeating themselves, and so you have to kind of overcompensate, and things can get more extreme in a bad direction, or they can get more refined in a good direction. I think survival is underrated. It's tricky to stay inspired, and in some ways the trick is to kind of sneak up on yourself by letting go of the need to express and let something emerge from the world. And that's usually been our approach. It's kind of the opposite. I mean, I have a forum where I lecture, and my opinions and views I can sculpt in an academic context. So for Matmos, I feel like it's more about being a channel for objects that they afford something. You know, they give you something to work with, and you just obsessively stare at them and listen to them and edit them and chop them up. And it's kind of like kimchi, where it sort of ferments and then it gets really funky, and then you're ready to go on tour. So a washing machine full of kimchi, I don't know if that's where I'm ending. It's certainly queer.
Okay, awesome. So we, I think, if other people have questions, comments, we've got mics, we can pass them around.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, because I felt like your video and your audio were so complementary to one another.
Thank you.
But how do you feel about, how do you like coordinate, or what comes first in your creative process?
This one was super easy because of the washing machine cycle thing. So this is kind of one of the only shows that we have that is our, like, we've been in theater pieces. We were in this Robert Wilson theater piece where your every second is accounted for what you're doing. But this is kind of one of the first things that we've done, correct me if I'm wrong, where it is timed out, and it's all because of the timing of so it was so easy to make the video because I knew at minute, 8, we will be doing this. We are such bad players, musicians, that we both get sort of lost in like spanking it in parts when we usually play. And we just kind of make up what we're doing as we go along based on a loose structure, and we play too long but anyway, so this one was and I've always had to make the videos where they were like, well, something around these minutes is going to be kind of like that maybe. This one was such a pleasure to make.
Martin makes all the videos for Matmos, but the one for Ultimate Care 2 was a collaboration with an artist named Jamie Burkhart.
Yeah, that's true.
He helped too. So some of what you're seeing is putting lights inside of the washing machine, or submerging cameras inside the washing machine. There's animation as well by Max Eilbacher, who's a friend of ours, a Baltimore artist. I'm trying to think if anybody else is in the mix there.
I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a bit of Vicki Bennett's video too. Is there not?
No.
No, I'm wrong.
Nay.
I'm facing this way. But yeah, I think video, when we started, it was really a pacification technique because you're in bars and people are drinking and talking and you just want them to shut the fuck up. So
yeah, and there's that trick of like like when ESPN is on behind someone's head that you're trying to talk to, even if they're the most fascinating person in the world, you're still like, and that's why we started doing these things in the first place. But then it became, it's definitely part of my like whatever artistic practice now. Like I enjoy making the videos very much. Yeah.
Boyd McDonald is sort of, that piece
anyway,
is
the music comes first, completely. Unless it's a thing, like we have a couple pieces where there is an object on video and it makes sounds and we work off of that. There's a few of those. Yeah,
like the cow uterus, we made a song with a cow vagina and uterus, and
you do.
And we tried to play with a real one live on stage once, but it wasn't airtight and we couldn't inflate it and get it to make the bagpipe noise. And it was just like a flaccid uterus on stage that smelled really bad. because it's like pickled in formaldehyde, so it's really disgusting. You feel like you're gonna pass out. So we're like, this sucks. Let's not do this. So we'll have something like that in video so that it's portable.
I can't stop thinking about the technical aspects of this. I imagine it would be very simple to just have this in your basement and fuck around with it and just get the recording down. But then when you take this on the road, that is, in my mind, that presents so many challenges. So I'm curious, what were some of the biggest challenges in modifying this device or modifying your technique to get this to be portable? Like, was it a straightforward thing, like, we need to snip this and push this button and do that? Or were there some really serious roadblocks? Do you have to find a water hookup at, like, every single venue?
It's really tricky, and we definitely owe a lot to friends. So our friend Michael Brown... Oh, shit, turn it off. Our friend Michael Brown is a sculptor and artist and handyman and generally butch queen who can like make things. And he goes to Burning Man and builds these elaborate environments and huge things. He can program, he can do all kinds of shit. So I just sat down with him and talked to him about what we wanted to do. And we need to have 30 gallons of water on stage in a music venue. And we need to be able to fill a washing machine live, and it needs to discharge and then fill. And so he hooked us up with a pump, a portable. So what we have behind the machine is a garbage can with 35 gallons of water and an iron ton pump, a submersible pump. We shut off the hot water, and it's just cold water. So it's cold water. This is the kind of gross part, is like it loads, it fills, it barfs it out, and then it loads and eats it again. So it's not the cleanest.
Like me on Friday.
And I think Martin's trying to like show you the magic. So we shut off the hot water, so there's no hot water. It's just a small size cold load. And then sonically, a big part of the picture is this, which is a Barkus-Berry planar wave transducer. It's used typically for the underside of grand pianos, and it's a really fabulous contact mic.
It's the world's greatest contact mic that I've used. I don't know. I bet Sheps makes something more expensive that might be better.
So we also have here a
Ships.
a wheeled platform which was built for us by Neil Feather, who just won a Guggenheim. Get her. So Neil Feather is an instrument builder and generally rad guy, and he came over, and Martin worked out with him about having a kind of skateboard for it, because it's 100 pounds, and we had to carry
It's 125 pounds.
Oh, fuck, God. Yeah, we had to carry it backwards up 3 flights of stairs to like get it into a club. So that sucks.
But honestly, the miking thing is fairly simple. When we recorded it, we used 2 AKG 414s in place of these Biodynamic M88s. Which are better at rejecting feedback, right, Jeff? And the Barkus-Berry planar wave transducer. But yeah, it's pretty much like point the mics at the sound and do it.
I mean, what makes the show happen is Martin and I doing it and being obsessed, but also having Sam Haberman, who is our drummer. Let's hear it for Sam.
Our other percussionist.
He's in a
Usually I have a no beards policy, but whatever.
And Jeff Carey is our sound man, and Jeff is, we're moving the mics constantly during the show, so Jeff's the one that's ducking that so that it's not just a fucking nightmare. But it's a tricky
really,
show to do.
the serious problem is when you put a microphone inside a washing machine or any box, pretty much, in a room that's amplifying that mic, it feeds back horribly. This room is a nightmare.
It's beautiful. We're glad to be here, but
yes,
yeah,
don't get me wrong. It's like a big rectangular box. Is
a lot of feedback.
All hard surfaces. So you had to. Jeff, are you here? Yeah. 125. Yeah, 125 hertz.
It just wants to go.
Like it had to. We had to like. So I don't know. Did it sound okay? I wasn't. I have to hear everything through this thing with like almost every frequency rolled off. So, and any other technical? I love those questions. I love.
Someone in the front row has a question. Hi. Yeah, I'm curious how the sound creates the images, because there were actually images there that reminded me of my younger day when I was having sex, and you picture something in your head, and you didn't know whether it was the action or the chemistry between the two of you and all that, but it was certainly abstract, and you guys captured that a lot with the music. How does the image come out of your music?
I think it's often the case that there's a weird effect in which your mind wants image and sound to somehow be connected. And so you may sense that there's a kind of complementarity from the sheer fact of simultaneity, because I think we don't often have unrelated audio and image. Like, especially, we've watched so many films and so much television, which is clearly edited so that an exciting sonic event will correspond to an exciting visual event. And so we expect unity. I don't know. I mean, Martin thinks carefully about what he puts on the screen.
How I connected with your sexual past, I'm not sure. But I'm not sure. There are many things I cannot remember, young man. A lot of it's washing machine. I mean, a lot of it is the washing. We put a camera at the top of it, looking down into it. That fellow Drew mentioned, Jamie Burkhart. I was so lucky that he literally was. He had a dream. Actually, he said, "I had a dream that I helped you make your video for the washing machine thing. Can I come and help you make your video for your washing machine?" I was like, yeah. You and Morpheus, come on down. And and he had all these amazing ideas. He brought all these tea lights, these water-sealed tea lights that you can buy at Blood Bath and Beyond, apparently.
Put them in swimming pools.
And we put them into the washing machine, and so it was lit from inside. Stupid monitor. So it was lit from inside. He had waterproof camera cases, so we could throw his cell phone recording into the thing. Or most of it, I was holding it because that actually looked better than putting the phone in.
And then sometimes it just seems like the striped pattern of the black and white fabric syncs up with the tempo of the rhythm, so it seems as if they're directly causally related, because you're seeing this fast strobing effect of just fabric tunneling through right when the hi-hat pattern is doing a similarly choppy 180 BPM.
It's almost, I'm clicking through it, and it is literally almost all washing machine, in some way. I had some old Whirlpool washer ads in it for a while, and that wasn't in there. I don't think I left it in.
Yeah, it's briefly. There's someone with a question in the front row.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the cum shots you were describing. And I'm really curious about the ways in which your musical practice intersects with your bodies.
Right.
And sort of there's kind of this archival impulse behind that. So I'm just very curious to hear you, both of you, articulate a bit more the ways that your own bodies come into the music, the performance, the art, etc.
So to speak. Yeah. I saved that piece of paper. It's really brittle and stiff, and it has that yellowy. I love the German word for cum stain. It's a Sportflecken. I don't like my voice at all, and so there's a certain. I think most of us don't, because it's sort of hard. It's us and yet not us. There's some uncanny valley with respect to yourself about hearing your own voice, unless you're a great singer or James Earl Jones or something like.
I have no problem with it.
But I think
my voice, not yours.
Harvesting the body for sound is a really fun thing to do. I mean, I think it's just the first object that's ready to hand that we all play with as children. You suck on your toes and your fingers, and you smack your chest, and you learn to snap your fingers. I somehow never learned to whistle. But we've done a track early on the second album called The Purple Island, which is built entirely out of body sound. And it's named after a Renaissance poem by Phineas Fletcher called The Purple Island, which is about the body being this giant landscape that you move across. And that contains, urination, defecation, vomiting, kissing, laughing, whistling. And it's just an attempt to kind of work with the body as sound source. And it gives you so much, and I feel it is.
There's a great Ron Geeson piece, too, on the album The Body that he made with Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. The Roger Waters parts, but the Ron Geeson parts are great.
Yeah, or Throbbing Gristle's Journey Through a Body. We're not the first people by any means to deal with that. I think a lot of people draw sustenance from it. And it takes us back to what Heather was pointing out about impersonality. I don't feel that my heartbeat or my cum splash is somehow me,
It is the most convenient to record, though.
I don't have to sweet talk somebody into being cool with something weird, just do it to myself.
So did you want, like, examples, or?
Yeah, I mean, that was great. I just wanted to hear.
I had a vision
Yes.
where I wanted to have a spanking gamelan orchestra, like with a really big person as the big gong and like smaller people as the I don't know the names of the gamelan orchestra. If you do, imagine I'm saying those there, like as all the different parts of it. But and I actually got in touch, like I went to the Eagle in San Francisco and I was like, do you think, I talked to some perverts and like, and just seemed like it would be so fun, but a super hassle. So I settled with finding a young person to spank. And I recorded that. Anybody seen us do that? We did it here. Were you here? Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's okay. Like hurting people, that's cool. Like God's down with that, clearly. Oh yeah, that was great. Actually, it was one of the.
Oh, he kept laughing. The boy in Philadelphia that we spanked, he just kept laughing.
And he was some kind of
time.
promoter of the event. He worked here or something. Yeah, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make you stop laughing. And it did not work. He just laughed harder and harder. It was super duper fun. That was a good night. But there's another body. Yeah. I mean, we clearly have a body
I did it
thing.
to Martin. I spanked Martin in Queen Elizabeth Hall, and he kept whispering something, and I didn't know what it was, and it was cup your hand because it makes a better sound, but it doesn't hurt. And I was
it
just
doesn't
doing
hurt as much.
I was just doing flat.
I don't know how
hurt
many.
Like hell.
Like this is so much different from. Like, just try it if you do it with your hand, like you can tell right off. Slapping flat, ooh, that stings. And it doesn't make as good a sound.
Sorry, babe.
So when we do the gamelan thing, y'all,
Cup it.
cup your hand.
I was wondering about the status or place of nostalgia, especially in the first piece, but related to the washing machine as well. Right, it's on VHS. You guys were talking about the aesthetics of public sex pre-Stonewall. You were thinking about Straight to Hell, and you said that it's really gone to hell. It's not as good anymore. Can you talk a little bit about the backward glance or that sort of melancholic gaze kind of a thing?
Well, I mean, the author of Feeling Backwards is right next to me, so it's yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I think there's a lot of schmaltzy, melancholic electronic music. I think there's some very moving, nostalgic electronic music. It's a question of taste. Like, when does a backward glance become a reactionary refusal of the present or just some kind of cop-out, versus the sort of Benjamin model of the tiger's leap, where there's some unexploded revolutionary potential in the past and we return to it on behalf of the present with a sense that that's what we're doing, and you can look at the history of aesthetics and see this dialectic over and over again. Think about Burne-Jones' pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, right? Is that a conservative refusal to think about factory labor, or is it an expression of revulsion with factory labor? It's a tricky one. I think for us, we're at a point in our lives when we're prone to it and we have to kind of watch out for it. On the other hand, I don't think the solution is to try desperately to squeeze into the trendiest Tumblr aesthetic of 2 milliseconds from now, and there's a lot of people in electronic music that really, it's about this kind of fast turnover, kind of arms race model of what is the hippest rhythm of right now, absolutely right now. And I learn a lot from listening to, getting on Bandcamp and SoundCloud and trying to be aware of what kind of forms are people using now. But there's a lot to think about, and I think some traps, sure, with respect to nostalgia. I mean, I think with VHS Blur, it's also about, well, which image and what kind of blur, and is it a particularly cool fucked up VHS tape? In my opinion, it is. But
art made with technology is very unfortunately tied to the marketplace. My sort of metaphor, simile, whatever, for this is, imagine if painters had all their paintbrushes taken away from them every 2 years and replaced with a different paintbrush that worked differently. It would be a nightmare. We wouldn't have the development of painting that there is. I think the VHS thing is actually, I mean, it is literally nostalgic. Like I remember certain, in the way that he has that haircut too. Like, and that's literally like from a time when I was young. So that is straight up nostalgia. On the other hand, VHS tape did have a sort of beautiful way of fuzzing things out, of causing you to be able to see the parts of the signal of video when it's screwed up that you never see anymore. You know, we have a whole new set of things now. You know,
data moshing,
the like beautiful digital satellite cable stuff that happens sometimes. But overall, I'm inclined to think that we move too quickly. Like as a synthesizer player, there is this thing where you are told by the marketplace to feel stupid for using something that's 7 years old.
But Martin's synth is from
But in
82.
fact, obviously, it takes a long time as an artist to really learn how to use something as a tool, you know, longer than a market cycle. So whereas I see nostalgia as a problem, and you know, I mean, there's all like there's a lot of weird things in my life that relate to this. I hang out with a bunch of 20-year-olds. I maybe primarily because I'm a pervert. I don't know, but I don't know. They don't have to go to work, so they're free a lot. Or they, yeah. Anyway,
it's
whatever.
Baltimore.
Yeah. Blah blah blah. The reasons for that, but anyway, I do. And a kid that I make video art stuff with, it was like, yeah, and then we have to copy it onto VHS. And I was just like, why would we copy it onto VHS? Well, because it looks cool. And I realize he has this other relationship to these old mediums because I don't know, I'm not him, I don't really understand it. It frustrates me because I remember having to work with VHS, and it made your videos look horrible to put them on, you know, like you would make a video on 3/4 inch and then copy it to another 3/4 inch and then copy it to VHS to actually give to somebody. And by that time, the whole thing looked like, you know, you were looking at it through a dirty plastic lens or something. So, you know, the idea of doing that on purpose, I was like, what are you talking? Why would we do that? I don't know. Yeah, it's a complicated issue. And whose nostalgia for what, when? I was talking to an Italian woman a while ago about, I mean, honestly, what she started by saying was, all Italian bands suck. Why is all good music from America? And I was like, that can't be true, that can't be true. But her thesis was that we are buried under the weight of history. And no one can make a move in Italy. Because every time you turn your head, there's another statue of a great thinker, or, you know, like another reminder of some, you know, one of the like sedimentary layers turning you into...
So you're cock-blocked by Petrarch.
Yeah, exactly. Like infinitely.
I don't know. I mean, I like
I can talk forever about anything. So
I like an aesthetic of both and. You know, I mean, there's a great Miles Davis song title, Yesternow. And I think that's the aesthetic I'd like to pursue, is one of like what Jonathan Gil Harris calls the polychronic. So a sort of pile up of historical moments that's not like a panorama that's smug of looking back, but about a sort of a over accumulation of historical reference.
I mean, there's definitely a problem in music right now with, what, you know, everybody's like looking to like, oh yeah, this band sounds like, doesn't even matter what, but it sounds like something else that came before. And yeah, you sort of wonder.
Well, thank God for trap, and thank God.
Yeah,
for...
I was going to say, basically, you wonder if white people can ever make anything new. Like, you really have to wonder.
This is kind of a both-and question, I guess. Martin, I loved what you were saying about how the washing machine, you know, despite having been an appliance all these years, also has all these affordances of a musical instrument. And I guess I was looking at the other, you know, boxy things with knobs on them that you were twiddling and massaging and tapping on the tables, and wondering if paying a different kind of attention to the washing machine had the sort of reciprocal effect of making your instruments into appliances, or, you know, do you already think of them as appliances?
Sure. Yeah,
Actually,
I love them all equally.
Martin was playing in an improv festival in Baltimore where there were a lot of instrument builders, and so everyone when they were being introduced was like, and on their own instrument, and then when it came time to introduce Martin, it was like...
The MC looks at me and goes, and on store-bought electronics. Like, he wasn't even dissed.
Harsh. So yeah, there's definitely a sense in which Roland and Whirlpool are you know, they have an implied consumer in mind. They have a model of what they think that consumer wants, and part of making gear your own is maybe fighting against the easy solutions and shortcuts that are built into the architecture presets and the expressive, you know, expectations, but also maybe just not worrying about that and trying to pursue a private goal. I don't know. I mean, Martin's a very, I think, really capable synthesist, and he doesn't sound like other people, but I'm biased, obviously, because I just think you're
the question was, do I think of my synthesizers as appliances? Yeah, sure. What does that mean, appliance? Something you apply to do. Where does that word come from?
I think.
Come on, Brainiac. Y'all are the academics, right? Appliance. Do we have to look it up on our pocket computers? Appliance. Is it like a made up, like a 50s,
Yeah, when was the first appliance? OED, yeah.
Appliances.
Interestingly enough, we were talking about, I didn't know that author or that filmmaker we were talking about before, but we were
Chantal
talking
Ackerman?
Yeah, and there was a woman, Christine Fredericks, in the United States in the 19th century who created like the science of housework at that time, the best of her knowledge of how you could make things quicker in the home. So I bet it's a 19th century word, because that's when modern appliances started to become invented.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so
to...
I wish I knew what it was. I'm not going to Google it, but there
Christine Frederick?
Yeah, let's hear it for Christine Fredericks.
Yeah.
All right.
Apply yourselves, everyone. I'm really, really grateful that you stuck around and wanted to talk to us and listen to us, and it means a lot. Like, we don't want to take it for granted that, like, we can roll up and people will give a fuck. So it's incredibly kind of you to be here with us, and thanks so much, Heather. I really appreciate it.
Let's thank Matmos. Great performance and generosity.